Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! So I have got another project for you using junk mail envelopes, and I'm going to keep them turned this way over because my address is on the other side. And we're going to create a pocketed signature page insert with a hidden writing spot. And I've got, to cover my envelopes, some printables by LianaScraps. And this is going to obviously be for the sewing journal that I'm working on. I've also got a piece of just coffee dyed paper that I may use to line my hidden writing spot. We shall see as we go along. And you know what? I have a sample of this and I forgot to grab it. Let me go get that. So here's the sample one that I did, and it'd get sewn into the signature like this. And we've got a big pocket on the side over here, and you can see the security lining on from the envelope. And then on this side, we've got a journaling spot, and I really love the pattern on the inside of this envelope. So I don't even think I'm gonna put any writing paper on, because you could write over this, it's light enough. But so you've got essentially what looks like a regular page, but when you flip it open, you've got all this space for writing, and then like that. So that's the sample one that I did. So I don't know what my inside of my envelopes look like yet, so I don't know for sure whether I'm gonna line the hidden writing spot or not. And so first thing we need to do is cut these down to my standard paper size with, since I'm using these printables that are printed on 8.5 by 11, is that I need them to be 5.5 wide by 8.5 tall. So let me get my paper trimmer. And in case you haven't seen my video where I explained what happened to the silicone mat that I usually have on my desk, I put my gel plate on it. Apparently silicone mats and gel plates do not play well together. All right, so for trimming this down, I am of course going to go with the cut open side to trim down to my 5.5. And these envelopes are about 6 by 9.5. So you're just going to want a bigger envelope than a letter size envelope, since we want it to be a full page size, but you could do something similar with smaller envelopes if you don't have big envelopes like this. So trimmed it down to 5.5. And now I will trim it down again to 8.5. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And I'm going to go ahead and trim these two pages down so that they are 5.5 wide. They're already 8.5 tall. And I'm also grabbing just a scrap strip of paper. This is from when I do printables of like fussy cuts and stuff, where I trim it off, because what we're going to do is attach our two pieces together using our strip of paper, which, let me just trim that down to 8.5 high. And yes, I grabbed my other paper trimmer for this because it was handier. So I'm just gonna fold this piece in half. Ish. And I'm gonna grab some tea dye and a brush, and I'm gonna ink this up. This way, if it shows at all, it won't be white. And I'm doing it on the envelope because it doesn't really matter, because we're gonna be covering up the envelope. And I'm going to ink the other side as well. I want my, ooh, and this one's got the pretty lining that I like. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I want to keep the opening to this side, and actually I'm going to go ahead and just trim a sliver off here because this is going to be our secret writing spot. So I want it open on both ends as I'm sitting here thinking about this. So I'm just going to take the barest sliver off just to open it up. So yeah, it just took the barest sliver off so that it's open completely. And I kind of like having this detail at the top. So I think we're going to put it so that it goes this way. But so that we stick with me not showing you my address, I'm going to do it on this side. And then we'll put this envelope over on this side. And we'll start by gluing our envelopes to our little strip here. And just keep the glue to one side of your fold line. Line it up, and I'm just leaving a little bit of space between the end of my envelope and where it folds, just so that I have a little bit of wiggle room when we sew it in and add it to our signature, so it's not tight up against that fold line. And that's also why I made sure I inked it. Add this guy. Just making sure they're lined up with each other. All right, I am going to ink down the center so that if any of the envelope shows, it's not going to be white. I'm just going to use the back of one of the pages we're going to attach to cover. And I'm going to turn off the camera and put the paper on the sides with my address so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then I'll be back and we'll work on the rest of this. Okay, so I've got the side with my address on it covered up. So we're going to just flip it over and cover this side with the other page. So it's going to go like this and like this. So let's go ahead and do that. And what I've been doing is, all right, let's make sure this bit's glued down so it doesn't cause any issues later, is I just put a bunch of glue in the middle on the envelope. And then along the edges of the piece that I'm sticking down, just to make sure my edges are glued well. And I'm just going to do this side again, making sure the flaps of my envelope are glued down all the way. Now I've got some white showing in a few spots on like this side and then over here. So I'm just going to take scissors and trim that off. Probably should have made sure I kept the thing closed so that I trimmed it off evenly on both sides. Okay, so we've got this page and then we've got our hidden writing spot here. And I'm noticing I've got a few spots that aren't quite glued down. So just double check, make sure everything's glued down well, and reinforce anywhere that is not. So this is our hidden writing space. Now again, you can take coffee dyed paper and attach it here. There's part of me that kind of wants to attach a couple sheets, like slip them underneath here, and so you have a little writing pad. I think I may do that. I think I may have had another idea for another variation on this one. All right, I think I'm not going to go too thick because we want to be able to close it up. I think what I'm going to do, let's see, if we take this page and fold it essentially in thirds, and then slip it underneath the little lip there, and then we'll re-glue it down. So we've got just a little like writing pad, and I'll trim this up. All right, let me do that. Since it's 11 inches long, it doesn't exactly cut neatly into thirds, and then it's 8.5 wide. So I think I'm gonna cut this down to, let's see, let's get an estimate of how short we want to cut these down. Let's go to 7 3/4. So it's a little bit shorter than our page, like the space we have on the page. And I'm gonna grab my scallop and cloud punch and punch the bottom corners to make them look pretty. And what I'm gonna do is run a little bead of glue across the top of these pages just to glue them together. Really should have done that and then punched the corners all together so that they'd be all nice and even with each other, but that's all right. And then I'm just gonna run some glue up under the envelope like so. So now we've got our signature that'll go in like that. And when you flip open here, you've got a couple sheets of paper to journal on. And all of this space can be used for journaling as well. I feel like I want to put a little bit of something decorative in that corner. I'm just going to add that just to add a little bit of interest on our inside here. And then you still have all this writing space. And what I think I'm going to do is add some lace down the edge of here, which will help keep that closed. I can also, if I want, if it really is bothering me, add, I'm noticing it's still got some of the inside showing here. So let's just sliver a little more of this off. Got anything else off? But you know what? It might be, that's what's showing. Yeah, no, that's what's showing. I will take care of that later. I will probably pull out a knife and a ruler and just sliver it off because it's kind of hard to cut that. I'm going to add lace down the side of here, which will help keep our hidden journaling spot page closed to add a little weight to that. But I also had an idea for something I wanted to do here because this kind of looks like it should be a pocket, and if I flip this upside down, it can be a pocket. So I went ahead and printed this page out again so that I could cut these pieces out and turn them into pockets. I'm gonna go ahead and take a minute off camera to cut those out because I don't think you need to see me fussy cutting those out, and I will be right back. All right, so cut them out, and I'm gonna put them there. I do want to ink my edges and put a little notch in them. I am going to use my notch punch that goes for my envelope maker. So I'm just gonna stick that guy in, punch out a little notch, do the same over here, and then let's use some tea dye ink and ink my edges. Just makes it stand out a little bit more. And this is like, I don't know what else is on this. I think it's probably aged mahogany because it's coming out a little more red than tea dye, but that's okay. I'm not mad at it. All right, I'm gonna add some glue around my edges and glue these on as pockets. I feel like I want to put some decoration on those pockets just to jazz them up a little bit. My sewing junk journal bits and bobbies. These are my Porch Prints digitals. Then I've got my stamped bits and bobs. And I think behind them, I'm gonna put a little bit of cheesecloth that's dyed using Distress Ink Victorian Velvet. All right, so I wanna ink my edges. I think this time I'm gonna go with brown, more solid brown than what I've been getting with that tea dye on that dauber that has some red on it. I'm going to straighten up the cut out on this guy because yeah, I did not always get these cut out very well. And I think what I want to do for this is I'm going to grab a scratch piece of paper and my go-to, which is antique linen, because it's a little too white. I'm just going to do a quick rub with the antique linen just to add a little bit, just to knock back the whiteness a smidge, just a hair. I'm going to add some Victorian velvet to the edges on this. And then on this one, I'm just going to use the little shabby shutters. And I'm just going to cut off a small piece of the cheesecloth. Just kind of guesstimate how much I need for each. And I'm going to pull out my Fabri-Tac for this since I am gluing essentially a fabric-y-like material. I'm just going to put a little glob of glue down, lay my cheesecloth down, figure out where that's going to go, use the Fabri-Tac to add that, because it will glue paper just fine, and I prefer to use this one gluing over fabric. And I'll add a little bit more. I definitely oozy It's like, oh, it's getting warmer out. Time to be all kinds of oozy with the glue. Let's use this to kind of smush it down. And one of my neighbor's dogs is outside barking, which you may or may not be able to hear. And it's causing mine to be growly here in the house. And one of them seems to think I'm going to let him go out so he can bark at the neighbor dog. And he's sorely mistaken. All right. Dab off the excess glue there. And then I'll put that on in a second, but since I've got glue oozing everywhere, let's go ahead and do this. That's gonna go there. All right, let's glue this down, and then we can add a little bit of glue behind to keep the cheesecloth from going crazy. A little bit there. Ooh. A little bit over here. And just kind of using a little silicone makeup applicator thingy to tap it down without getting glue all over my fingers. All right, let's add this bit. I was thinking I'd use this, but it covers that up completely, so I don't think I'm going to use these guys. But the kit also came with these little cards that I cut out. So that one's going to go in that pocket, and I think we'll put this one in this pocket. But we want to make them easier to pull out. All right, so first we are going to ink some edges, and I'm going to use the Victorian Velvet. And definitely needs something at the top. Let me have a quick look. All right, so I pulled out one of my containers with fuzzy trims, and I think I'm going to use a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And these are from Purple Paper Mountain. I'll leave a link to the Etsy shop down below where I got these. And what I'm gonna do is cut a little bit off. And I think what I'm gonna do is just staple it on. That did not work at all. All right, let's see if I can. I'm using a needle threader to get my fiber back under the staple. So I'm going to use that to do that, and then once that's pulled through, I'll take my needle threader off, stick it through there, and do this. through like that so that I've tied it around the staple. Not perfect, but it'll work. And I think to save myself the headache for this one, I am gonna trim a little off, punch a hole. Thread it through. And tuck that into that pocket. And so we've got the little fibers sticking up so we know there's something in those pockets. And they can help with pulling that out. And then on this side, I want to put some lace. And I think I'm gonna use this lace. I'm just gonna run it down the side. And I'm kind of looking at it and I'm kind of thinking I don't want it to be white. Kind of don't want it white. So what I think I'm going to do is dye it. I'm trying to decide between vintage photo and like a coffee dyed. What do you think? Vintage photo or coffee? I'm not vintage photoed, Victorian velvet or coffee. I think I'm going to do Victorian velvet. So I'm going to do that, which is going to require a little bit of drying time once I ink it up. So I'm going to ink it, let it dry, and then come back and we will take a look at our finished oh, wait, before we go. Over here, we have it open on two sides right now, and I don't know that I want it open on both sides. So now comes the time to decide on either a side tuck or a top loading pocket. I think because we've got these two guys going this way, I'm going to make this one a side tuck. So I am just going to run a bead of glue down the top of this envelope. To glue that shut. Now I'm gonna go and dye my lace, and then I'll be back once it is all dry and we can add it to the edge of this page. So I'll be back. You know, as I was starting to ink up the ribbon, I thought, you know what, perhaps my viewers would like to see how it is I ink ribbon with distress ink. So, and I'm not sure if I've shown this before or not. I can't off the top of my head remember. So all I've done is I've put some Victorian Velvet Distress ink on my mat. I've squirted my lace with some water, and I'm just gonna rub it around in the Victorian Velvet. I kind of feel like I may want to grab my Oxide Victorian Velvet ink pad as well. And just basically smoosh it around in the ink until it is completely covered with ink. I think I'm gonna need to add a little bit more ink to my mat. Let's do a little bit more of the regular Victorian Velvet, and then I'm gonna go grab the Victorian Velvet Distress Oxide. Add a little bit more water. Having the lace wet just helps get the ink to move around on the whole piece instead of just clumping up, you know, in spots. I think I'm gonna go grab my Distress Oxide. Do I have it over here? Oh, I do. Excellent. All right. Add a little bit of that. And then I'm just kind of ball it up in my hand to get it distributed evenly throughout my ribbon. I think I want more of the just straight up Victorian velvet, the distress inks, not the oxide, just to get it a little darker maybe. So yeah, I've got some darker spots, some lighter spots, so it makes it look a little bit more aged and vintagey when you do it like that. And you don't have like a completely even inking. So this needs to dry before we can attach it to our page, but once it is dry, I will come back and attach it to the page and we'll be done. Okay, so the lace is all dry, and I'm just gonna run a little bit of Fabri-Tac down the edge there. I'm gonna open that up so that I don't have to worry about getting it on pages I don't want to get it on. Oops, sorry about that. Uh-oh, we had some shrinkage. All right, I'm just gonna stretch it out so that it goes along the whole edge there, because yeah, it definitely shrunk a little. I have never noticed an issue with that before. That is strange. All right. So there we go. We've got lace on there. We've got our hidden writing space with our little notepad. Our little pockets on here with just our little journaling spots. And then we have a big pocket over here. I will probably put a piece of like writing paper or a large journaling card in there with a tab sticking out, so that the recipient knows that's a pocket there. And the back. And I will probably be adding a little bit more glue to that edge just to keep it from rolling up like it's doing. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.